Hey gang, welcome back to another episode of UXpreneur. Today, I wanted to do something a little different. I wanted to address the elephant in the room. So grab that popcorn, let's dive in. So far at the beginning of this UXpreneur channel, we've been heavily focused on marketing. And some might look at this and frown upon it as vaporware instead of real software or product. So I wanted to address that. The part of the reason that we're launching this is because we are filling a gap in a UX, UI, and designer's career going from a boot camp, an online school, or a regular academic university to the real world where experience beats meritocracy. And so what happens is when you go to a job interview, they ask you, do you have any real experience? And often we find ourselves volunteering to do things for free just to have something remotely close to being real. But then we come to find out when rubber meets the road that it's all about references, referrals, and who we know in our network. And there's no better way to grow your network than to go out there and actually conduct the research required of a UX researcher, to go and recruit people, just 5 at a time, and test them on your prototype. That's just like an entrepreneur would do, who has to go out and recruit people one by one to buy their product. And you're doing the same thing. You're just earlier in the phase than what we typically see an entrepreneur on Forbes magazine or any popular media channel that you may frequent. What we see is celebrity status entrepreneurs, and we look at them and we say, I want what you have. But we don't look back at their track record of early days when they have a cold start and what was the labor that they put in to really get the engine cranking. What did it take to get it started? And it's just one at a time, like Paul Graham says.
Do things that don't scale. One of the most unscalable things founders have to do is recruit manually. How does this overlap with we UXers? It overlaps when we have to use screener surveys to qualify potential user testers, doesn't it? We've been an entrepreneur the whole time and didn't know it.
And so that gets us to qualitative data, qualitative research, rather than quantitative. Most of our process is based around qualitative data to drive design decisions. By now, we're going to market with our product, and it's going to look like vaporware to begin with because we are just testing the concept. If we get enough response back, we can move to the next step called crowdfunding.
We've been working on the smoke test or fake landing page on the far bottom left. The next step is fundraising, and it's going to take vision and perseverance to succeed, both hallmarks of hireability.
Where we can elicit donations called pre-seed from friends and family, that we can actually give some money in the door to fund the development. And this will help you partner with a co-founding engineer. And that's how we will take this to market ultimately, with a MVP or single feature tracer bullet product.
Here you can see what is often misconstrued as an MVP on the left. An MVP is not fully functional or reliable. It's clunky and inefficient. On the right, you can see that an actual MVP is one feature built reliably, tested for usability, and most importantly, it moves people emotionally even if they hate it. And that brings us to Jessica Walsh, who says, if no one hates it, no one really loves it. Like a birthday party surprise, we cannot wait until we get permission from people from our focus group or our survey in order to surprise them. Otherwise, we spoil the surprise. It's okay if people hate it. If it's controversial, it goes viral. This brings us to the Inefficiency Principle, states that innovation and efficiency are polar opposites. You cannot increase one without decreasing the other. So we should be on the far left side of this teeter-totter to begin with, on the innovation side. All too often, we fall victim to the incrementalism for fear of being seen as impractical. A lot of people think that an MVP is build one wheel and then put an axle on it, but on phase 2, it's not usable. This is not a very user-centered process on top. On bottom, we have emotional experiences. So now let's think about how to design for wow. What does design for wow look like? Well, I turned to Cameo, successful app on the App Store that sends people messages from their famous celebrity. Here we can see Kano's model, the Japanese product manager that got fed up with his team doing milquetoast vanilla incrementalism and evolution all the time. Performance is not enough. We must exceed people's needs, not just meet them, because our competitors can always increase performance too. And we cannot just meet people's needs. Otherwise, we never ascend to even neutrally satisfying them. And we can measure this as well with a single ease question, SEQ, survey at the end of our usability tests. On a scale of 1 to 7, what would you rate this? 7 being very easy, 1 being very difficult. And the average benchmark is 5.5. So we can actually measure how satisfactory we are after these experiences. And you can imagine riding a skateboard without a helmet and knee pads and elbow pads and wrist guards and all that. Imagine that. Imagine riding a skateboard in the middle of the interstate. It's risky. Which brings me to Mark Zursk. I watched him speak at an IDSA 2011 event, and he says, creativity plus risk equals reward. When's the last time you drove a motorcycle yourself on the street? It's risky, right? MVPs have a level of risk to them. And we're only building one feature that does not yet exist in the market. This brings us to value innovation, where we reduce cost of building by reducing features. And we increase the value to the buyer by only building what's missing in the market. A competitive analysis is how we discover where the gaps are. Seek not to be better, seek to be different. Instead of trying to improve existing systems, find the problem and think of 9 bad ways to solve it, and a good one will reveal itself. And that brings us to Michael Porter's book, Competitive Advantage, where he says, good strategy is copying, but great strategy is being different. And to Jared Spool's article, published in 2013, called Experience Rot, where he says that counterintuitive, chances are all those features you add to your design hurt the UX, because every feature that's squeezed in makes it less competitive. And that's because as we're adding features, we're adding complexity to the design, making it less usable.
Like Seth Godin says,
if you use your money to create exceptional products and services, you won't need to spend it on advertising or indeed marketing. Now, Seth Godin has wrote countless books on marketing. I've always appreciated his heterodox views. Here, we can learn from Seth's wisdom.
Take your marketing budget and invest it in the product, because a product will market itself through word of mouth.
If it's amazing. This is otherwise known as referrals. We are tasked as product designers with measuring where do people click first? What activates them on that landing page or that mobile app? What are some of the triggers to get them to come back? Is it a push notification? Is it an email? What is it? And then viability. What value are they paying for? What's the least amount we have to build for money to change hands? Now, because referrals are our go-to-market strategy, word of mouth, we can allow awareness to take care of itself. And so where are we now? Well, we are at the innovator 2.5% of the marketplace. We have not crossed the chasm yet. We are still developing our minimum feature set from our user story mapping as we go and user test people. And we're trying to narrow down what is the least amount we have to build in order to take money, called viability. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success, says Biz Stone, co-founder of Twitter. And so it takes us 10 years to cross the chasm. Imagine that. And every company only lasts for 15 years before they file Chapter 11 bankruptcy. So over here on the right side of the mainstream market is the 15-year mark. So we're only mainstream for about 5 years before we collapse. So instead of trying to focus on a whole product solution, a complete solution that's convenient for the mainstream, focus first on the innovators and the early adopters over the next 10 years on your single feature product or your minimum feature set.
Then finally, you and your co-founder will have a lot of data that informed you along your journey. Build and launch a single featured product. At first, it's alpha, then it rolls out as beta, and then finally, you have something in market that can be spread through word of mouth. And with that, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like it if you liked it, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, click the notification bell so you're notified when the next video happens, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye-bye.